Yo, 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 ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another In the OT podcast for BetHubb Sports Blog.com. Once again, I'm your host, Chad M. Today we're going to break it down puck style NHL hockey as finally the owners and the players have decided to get into the negotiating room in order to try to hammer out a new CBA as the current one is set to expire on September 15th. And if you guys were thinking heading into this offseason as to whether or not there'll be hockey to start next year, you can pretty much laugh away that chance based on the offer that the owners had today towards the players. And we will break down the 5 major points that was reported by Renaud Lavoie of RDS in Montreal and reposted on the wonderful hockey blog by Puck Daddy at yahoosports.com. The author on this particular article, Harrison Mooney, getting the credit. The first one, reduce players' hockey-related revenues to from 57% down to 46%. That is substantial. 11%, dream on, good luck. No players union will agree to that off the bat. They are completely dreaming and they're completely off base here. And I think the only reason that they're wanting a massive reduction like this is because they realize the players probably were getting too much of the pie from the previous CBA. Well, you know what? That's too bad, Bettman. If you made a bad deal from before, that doesn't mean that you're just going to erase it and get some of that back here. Suck it up, eat it, and realize that that was a mistake and there's nothing you can do about it now, instead of trying to act cocky like there was nothing ever wrong and you think you're going to convince the players into a deal right here where the owners are going to be clearly benefiting from the overall percentage of revenue going in their pockets. And, you know, it's easy to sit here and criticize and say it shouldn't be this way. But you know what? I've gone one step further. I have a resolution that will probably work and make things a little bit more fair. How about the fact that they try to aim for something 50-50? And if the players aren't willing to go down that road right away and drop off 7%, well, then that's fine, understandable. Let's just say hypothetically this is a 7-year deal, which I think is probably around the average of these deals that have been under Gary Bettman. And, you know, why don't they just have a 1% reduction for the players every year till the point where it's 50-50 split? Then they don't have to realize, then they don't have to have a hard hit right off the bat. And it's just a slow, natural progression that everybody can get comfortable with. Very simple. I don't know why these concepts aren't thrown away right off the bat. And then the second point here, 10 seasons in the NHL before being eligible for an unrestricted free agent. Well, right now it's 7 years, and that's still a pretty long time, longer than any of the other professional major sports out there. So they already have an advantage with that, and you know the reason why the owners want this is because they want to continue to try to have parity in this league. They want to try to allow the small market teams to keep their young stars for a longer period of time before they leave, but it's just still too much. 7 years is plenty of time. If you can't prove to to someone who's going to be a free agent, who's been a superstar in your organization for that long, that they're going down the right path, what makes you think in those extra 3 years it's really going to change? Give me a break. And furthermore, you already have the salary cap in place, which tries to keep things a little bit more even. And, there's got to be a little bit of a free market element to things here. These players bust their ass to get in the league, and 7 years is a damn long time, and they should be able to continue to choose where they want to play after those 7 years. If you really want to try to make incentive for them to stay there, then have it based on money, since we know that's what they care about. How about if you stay with your team any year past year 7, that they make another 20-25% on the maximum contract, something along those lines. You've got to make it incentive more than just the money that they could get from another city to this current one that they're in. I mean, why don't these morons think of this? I just don't get it. Then the next one, contracts limited to 5 years. This is my best one. I'm falling off my chair laughing because I'm the person that went berserk a couple years ago when the Kovalchuk contract happened. And then you've seen a lot of these long-term 10, 11, 12, 13-year deals. Richards, Carter, Luongo, DiPietro from before, and then now this offseason, Suter Parise. It just doesn't end. We know the reason for this is because the teams want to have a lower salary cap hit, so they backload these contracts, and there was no cap before on the amount of years, and that is Bettman's fault for being an absolute moron and not addressing it, knowing that these shark-minded lawyers would be able to manipulate the salary cap like this and be able to, work it to their advantage. And now they want to go to the complete opposite end by going to 5 years. What a bunch of goofballs. This was never enforced properly in the first place. The 13 years and all that kind of stuff. They went nuts about Kovalchuk 2 years ago. They made them restructure the contract. Well, what do you know? Here we are 2 off seasons later, and the same crap's going on with Suter and Parise. The final years, they get $1 million, $800,000. They get the big bonuses at the beginning of the contract. It's just an absolute mess. You can't go from one extreme to the other. I understand if you want to try to clean things up, by all means, go ahead and do that. I support it. But there has to be a slow progression. You can't just do it like this. There's got to be maybe 10 years, then 9 years, 8 years, whatever it is. Come up with something that is just not so extreme from 13 years to 5 years. Think about how stupid the league is going to be laid out for the next number of years. You're going to have half the players still with long-term contracts and the other guys 5-year contracts. You could hypothetically have 2 contracts of maximum length deals of 5 years expire before some guys are even done their current contracts. That just cannot be allowed. The fourth one, no more salary arbitration. Are they kidding you? What's going to happen when these guys are restricted free agents? Who gets to decide on who these players, how much they're making? I mean, you have to have a third party, someone who's objective on everything, determining how much these guys are worth. I mean, so then does that mean the owners automatically dictate and tell them what they want, or the players and vice versa? Where do they dream up this crap? I just do not understand it. And then the fifth and last point here, entry-level contracts, 5 years instead of 3. That is way too long. 3 years is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Maybe if they want to meet in between, they go to 4 years. A lot of times guys end up re-upping anyways. And 3 years, make it sort of like I said before with the UFA deals. If you want them to stick around after the 3 years, make it them receiving more money from the home team if money's what they care about. And that should provide some more incentive for the players to stay there instead of, wanting to possibly leave and the RFA deals coming in a little bit earlier. So that's the way I see it here. It's absolute stupidity. Obviously, the NHL wanted to try to give them a deal that they knew they would never accept and start the negotiating from there, because we all know the old tactic. You start completely off basis and then work your way in from both sides with the compromises. And but you know what? Sometimes that strategy is fine, but you cannot take it to this extreme. This is way too out of hand. There has to be a little bit more logic in trying to apply things that make somewhat sense right off the bat instead of being completely out of whack here. This is just another example of Bettman being smug, cocky. I just can't stand his face. I can't stand his attitude. He was asked about the CBA all year long. He kept ignoring it. Don't worry, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. Well, you know what? You won't get it done, Bettman. I've been saying this since January. You guys should have been looking to this last offseason, let alone waiting till this offseason, and you're just going to hurt the sport anymore. I wish that he would have accepted my bet back in January that there would be no hockey to start September, and a lot of this has to do with his pompous, cocky attitude, the way he deals with things, and he's going up against a monster in Donald Fear, who used to represent Major League Baseball players who got what they wanted. Peace out the beginning of NHL for next year with the way this current CBA offer has been put on the table.